If you think that being a great lawyer in and of itself is going to be enough to guarantee you a successful solo law firm, I'm here to give you a little bit of a wake up call. Today, we're talking about sales and why sales matter for your law firm and why it's one of the most important things you'll do in your law firm. I'm Darcel Lobo. I'm a solo attorney in the Seattle area, and I also help other law firm owners open and manage their solo law firms. Recently, I was at a CLE and with women lawyers, and the topic was being a rainmaker. And this notion of doing sales and selling yourself specifically came up. And it had like this negative connotation across the panelists. Now, I wasn't a panelist on this presentation, I was hosting it, so I didn't insert my opinion, but I wanted to share why I think sales is 100% matters in your law firm. And I don't think it's a bad thing to sell yourself. And as a solo attorney, you're able to do so and to have a brand of your law firm that reflects you in a way that a mid-sized or a large law firm simply just can't do it. A big part of my practice is estate planning in my law firm. And I'm here to tell you there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other estate planning attorneys in the Seattle area. And so when I think of my brand and selling myself, I think of, why do my potential clients come to me? Why do they want me to do their estate plan? How do I stand out differently? Why will they drive past every other estate planning attorney to come see me to have me do their estate plan? That's what I think of when I think of selling yourself and how you are going to do sales and have a brand in your law firm. Because as a solo, the reason that you went out on your own, one of the primary reasons probably was to make more money, right? I mean, there's other reasons as well. There's the time, the flexibility, the freedom, and things like that. But if you worked at a firm beforehand, you probably realize, like, I can make just as much money, if not quite a bit more, going out my own and probably working less than I did for somebody else. And so, but we have to focus on sales and how we can do sales, and that knowing that being a great lawyer is not enough to have a successful law firm owner. But we want to approach sales in a way that it feels natural. It doesn't feel sleazy. It doesn't feel like a used sales Carmen, right? We want to do so in a way that feels good, right? And is helpful to our clients. And so, because when we think of sales, when it comes to our legal services, because that's what we're selling is our legal services, right? But in doing so, we are educating our client and we're providing them a solution to a legal issue that they're having. When you're doing sales, you're not being pushy, right? You're giving them options. You're being helpful to the client. You're providing them such a valuable service, right? For most practice areas, when someone comes to you, they're at one of the lowest points in their lives, right? If it's, if you do criminal law, maybe if you do immigration, if you do probate, right? Someone's just died. If you do bankruptcy and someone's facing foreclosure, they lost their job, right? Or personal injury and someone's been severely injured in an auto accident or a medical malpractice case, right? And so they may be experiencing one of the, lowest points in their lives, and you are here to help them and provide them a way out, to provide them a solution to whatever their issue is. And so if we don't have the sales in our law firm, that means that you don't have any clients. And if you don't have any clients, then you don't have any revenue in your firm. And we're not striving to become a hobbyist attorney, right? We don't want to be a hobbyist law firm owner. We want to do so to create a profit for us in our business, right? And so, but there is a way to do so in a way that feels good. And it's the way that you want to do sales and the way that you want to help your clients. And so I tell lawyers all the time, especially those who want to go out on their own, that lawyering is the smallest part of my day. That's the smallest part of what I do. The biggest thing that I do in my firm is sales and bringing new clients in the door. And then I have my support staff that helps with the actual preparing of documents and navigating that legal process for the client. but I'm doing the sales. That's most of what I do, is bringing in those clients. And so when we look at, sales and how to become better at selling your legal services, there can be a lot of fears that come up sometimes, or, uncertainty around sales. And you want to make sure you come across in the way that feels genuine to you. But if we break it down kind of more simpler and maybe remove the word sales, you're asking questions, you're learning about your clients' issues, and you're offering solutions to them for their problems, right? And you're following up with them, you're helping them navigate this legal journey, whatever their legal journey may be, whatever their issue may be. For us as lawyers, if we're doing this every day, it doesn't seem as, big sometimes to us, right? We kind of take it more for granted. This client could be, one of 60 clients that you currently have. But for the client, it's their first time, right? They've never gone through this process before. They may have never hired a lawyer before. And so we want to make sure that we're approaching how we're helping them and the services that we're offering to them in a way that is sensitive to that and is helpful to them and their whatever their legal issue may be at that time. And so the better that you get at selling, the more comfortable that you get with selling, the more you're going to be able to predict your income, plan for your year, when you're planning your vacations and your trips and times off, things like that. You want to be able to kind of forecast what your revenue will be. We want to not have such an up and down roller coaster. When it comes to the revenue in our firm, we want to, have the trajectory go up, but in a way that's more smooth. It's not going to be perfect, but we don't want it to be so high and so low, because it's very hard for you to plan for that and to, provide for the expenses and hiring someone and all that comes with owning a law firm. We want to kind of smooth out that bumpy ride when it comes to increasing the revenue in your law firm. And so we don't want to have so many feast and famine cycles in the law firm. We want to kind of smooth that out. And so let's go over some action steps you can take to become better at not just your sales, but actually increasing the revenue in your firm. The first one, if you're not doing this already, is that you should be tracking your consultations and your closing rate. So your conversions. If you had 10 consults this week, how many of those consults turned into paying clients? And if they did not hire you at the consult, what are you doing to follow up with those consults? Because sometimes clients need that follow-up before they're ready to commit. And so ensuring that you have a process in place where there's a follow-up email that gets sent out to them, that same day or the next day. Maybe there's a phone call that needs to happen. Maybe 1 week later, there should be another follow-up. So what are you doing after that consult to follow up? But also we want to track those rates so we kind of know what your norm is as far as out of all your consults, what percentage are you converting into clients? So we know how many consults do you need to have in a week and a month to get X number of clients, to have X number of dollars coming into your firm as revenue for your firm. You should also have monthly revenue goals. You may have an annual goal in mind. I'd break that down monthly, especially if you know that you have a practice area that has peak seasons and slow seasons. And so some practice areas may have that. And so we want to know not just what is your annual revenue goal, but what is your monthly revenue goal. If you are just starting out, if you haven't gone solo yet, just know there's no reason that you should not be able to hit $100,000 in those first, I would say 6 months, 6 to 9 months. You should be able to hit 100K. If you have a contingency type practice, where I think like PI, right? And so I could see it maybe being a little bit slower because you have to work those cases before you have those fees coming in, and those cases can take months to generate any revenue for you. So I understand that. But if you have an hourly practice or a flat fee practice, you certainly should be able to hit your 6 figures in those 6 months, maybe 9 months of going out on your own. Also, in managing your sales and increasing your sales, you should be looking at your calendar as far as what your consults are, and you really should be blocking out your calendar. I have a free guide below about how I run my law firm under 30 hours per week, and I show you how I block out my calendar. Certain days are for consults, certain dates and times are for legal work, for the HR side of running the law firm, right? So I block out certain time for certain activities. Now, there's some things that are outside of my control, right? If I get assigned a court date by the court, right, that may not fall within my time block to my schedule. But for certain types of cases, I know when I'm going to have certain hearings, and so I've kind of built that in. But if you are not managing your schedule in that way and aren't using time blocking, I highly suggest that you get that free guide down below to be able to be in better control of your schedule. And so again, if we know your conversion rates of your consults, we know how many consults you need to be having every week to be able to hit your revenue goals. So those are some takeaways as far as what you can do to increase your sales, increase the revenue, and become more consistent in your revenue and not have such a high ebb and flow in your law firm. So if this is helpful for you, if you are planning to go out on your own or you are on your own and want to receive suggestions, tips as far as from one solo to another, as far as how I've opened my law firm, how I run it, make sure that you stick around. I have other videos below that might be helpful to you, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, have a good one. Bye.